Eugene, you've been reading the responses to that conversation 4, and as you said to us a little while ago, that it's negative. Like I think you were saying, some of the responses. Now, here you have very senior people. They're not kids. They're in their 80s, some in their 60s, who've been faithful Catholics, who spend a lifetime, brought up families, some were even priests, and they're past it, and they're writing that they don't find that joy and excitement in the story anymore.
Yeah.
Why has that happened?
Well, I can understand resentment in anyone who's been badly hurt, or resentment who's been in a person who's been disappointed. Many of these people were people of high idealism to start off with, and an idealistic person does run into that danger. Once the ideal seems to shatter, everything falls apart, and so what is left then is simply a kind of a bitchiness, and it's often very hard to get over that, because whatever you say or do is seen in terms of the very things that they're resenting. For example, I might go out to them with all the gush of a charismatic, and of course that just raises a very cynical comment, because they do put up a barrier. I made a study of victims because I'm working with Aboriginal people, and this is a problem that many of them feel victims. Now, one of the problems about a victim is not only do they feel as if they've been hurt, oppressed, but any attempt to get them out of that, you find that they hold on to their identity as victim. The last thing they want not to be is a victim. It's a peculiar thing in human nature that people who have been, who are victims of abuse or whatever, cling on to that as part of their identity. Mm-hmm. And what you're trying to do is to get the victim to feel that they can become victor. And this is the whole mystery of the crucifixion. Jesus died on the cross a victim, but he rose a victor. And that's the importance of the Paschal mystery in all of this. It's only one aspect, of course, but and really every person has free will, and if they choose to remain as they are, you can't budge. You could hope that they might get a longing to be different.
Yeah, but we've had this conversation before on the question of the statistics. There are a heck of a lot of people now.
Blow your statistics. I'm not interested. Statistics are something like 84%. That is a number. What that 84% means is this individual, that individual, someone, and so on. It's the individuals.
But isn't one of the prime drives in Christianity and in following Christ to go out and bring this joy, the joy of the gospel, to the whole world?
Right, and
now, we're failing.
Not everyone wants that joy.
Yeah, but when you see that 90% of the people have given up listening.
But when you take that out to people, that joy of the gospel, you also take it under the understanding that they can reject it or accept it. Everyone is free, and if they reject it, well, that's their right to do that.
Yeah, but don't you as a follower of Christ have a responsibility to sit down every now and again and look at your success as a teacher, as a preacher, as a motivator of people to take this joy. If they're not finding the joy.
And that success will not be in numbers, will not be in percentages. The great Bishop Francis de Sales said it'd be achievement enough for a bishop to save one soul. Or you can look at the case of Elijah in the Old Testament, under that persecution under Queen Jezebel, when it seemed like the whole nation had gone over to idolatry. Elijah thought he was the last one left to worship Yahweh. You have this famous story of the competition of the sacrifices. But then that didn't win the day. They still were chasing after Elijah. Elijah felt he was the last one of the true believers. And he goes on this long journey. And he comes to Mount Horeb. And you have the succession of cataclysms, the earthquake, the fire, and so on. And God was not in any of those big things. God was in the still, small voice. And he recognised that little thing, that still, small voice, was the presence of God. And this is something we've got to learn, that the little things are more important than those big things, and especially those big numbers. Those big numbers mean nothing, because every individual is free to accept or reject. And I can't, they're not automatons of mine. I can't manipulate them.
I'm not suggesting that you manipulate them. I'm more making a point that when you reflect on the reception to the theology, to the beliefs, to the prayer forms that you're putting forward, and you're finding that the vast majority are no longer accepting that, whereas once they did accept it and it built a civilization.
My success is not on numbers. I'm now preparing a homily for Sunday.
Yeah, but
and I'm wondering, and I'm wondering how it'll go over. But last Sunday, something I said happened to click with someone, and I thought, you beaut, that was worth saying. If only one person in that congregation got something out of it, that was a victory. You've got to find a victory in little things.
I hear what you're saying.
Well, that's a very victorious comment, I think, to finish on. Thank you for watching this interview and for the contributions you've been making to the wider conversation on our forum. Next week we'll present the final conversation we recorded on the 17th of November, facilitated by Stephen Crittenden with all of our panellists. The focus of this final conversation is in the ideas being explored by Peter Todd and Professor David Tacey in their books on the relationship between spirituality and our mental and physical health. This is a conversation not to be missed, as in many ways it intersects most practically with our everyday lives.